Producer and co-director.
No, we might still have a part.
Sam Liu, pleasure.
Hey guys.
Now you get cameras in your face.
Oh, cameras for anything but in the seat. There's a lot of cameras.
Right? Yeah.
Commentary, you guys were talking about how you took out or toned down some of the blood of the story. So can we talk about that process of toning down the source material to get down to the PG-13? Was there ever consideration of releasing this as an horror?
You know, I think that was, this is a little bit more potentially behind the scenes kind of dervish, right? I think when, you know, I first pitched the idea or potential of doing it, and I was talking to, you know, to the head director of it. For some reason, I thought that they were going to allow us to do an R-rated version of it, right? But when we started building it, they kept telling me like I had to make it PG-13, and I was just like, wait. I have to do a cosmic horror story like with PG-13, you know? And so, I mean, I've had the whole, you know, rating system. It's hard to judge. There was a period where I felt like there was a lot of violence and a lot of blood, and we were still not getting it, right? But I remember doing my death short, which had no blood, I don't think, no really gratuitous violence. But there were these scary ghost creatures, right? And I got an R for that. And so it didn't make sense to me. Like, okay, what gets you an R? So I was really scared. Even like the Soul of the Dragon, right? Which I kind of felt like was pretty fun violence, and there wasn't any real like serious gore or anything in it. That got me. And so I wasn't sure what R meant or PG-13 meant. So I just told him I would do my best. So again, there was things that were in the board, which I kind of felt like, you know, would have been breaks. You know, again, like the aftermath of like, this is spoilery, but like Dick's death, there was like blood everywhere. There was blood on the ceiling and stuff like that, right? Which I thought was awesome. But we had to take it out, you know. But I think going in, we knew that we had to try to hit PG-13, and so. I don't know, there's just a lot of things about this that, I don't know, I wish we had more time. I wish we had more screen time. There's a lot of like really interesting concepts in it, you know, outside of the gore. And I really wish we had more screen time. This thing, again, our normal movies, right, are around 72-ish, 75-ish. You know, when it gets to 880, it's kind of long, right? This thing was like almost 100 minutes. You know, we had to cut it down to 90. You know, that was even after severe cuts. So I really wish that there were times. I mean, again, it's just maybe going back to the PG-13 thing. You know, I wish that we could have leaned into the body horror a little bit more. You know, not a lot, but just enough that we can touch on the horror a little bit. You know, I wish we had more time so we could play up tension with sound design more. Yeah, but again, it's sometimes the audio can push something into it for being too dark. So that was something that we really got mindful too, which again kind of lament a little bit, but maybe it's okay because I think it's a pretty dark movie already. You know, to some people. To some people, again, it's just I think. I don't know, just how people consume it now. It's so, the range is all over the place, right? Some people are going to get freaked out by it, some people are just going to be like, whatever, boring, you know? So it's hard to gauge for everybody, I think, at this point. Because I think some people are super desensitized, and I think some people are just, you know, it's new and fresh to them. So I think, again, having an R rating, we probably would have pushed it a little bit more, but maybe it's better we didn't, I don't know. Does the answer sort of, I don't know, I rambled for a while, but.
So this movie, I mean, because you've done as DC animated films, what was about this one that you're like, I gotta direct this film, I gotta do this?
You know, I think when I was younger, I was kind of an emo kid, you know. I really you know, I love Gothic horror because I think it's even not even so much about the horror element of it, but it's I think good Gothic horror. There's a parallel of humanity within it. Like the monsters are just people that are like, for the most part, right, are people that sort of don't fit into society. Frankenstein is
Yeah, kind of like a Hellboy kind of thing as well.
yeah, and I think again, Hellboy leans into that, and so I feel like there's a subtext that's, but I think in this case also, but then it's. It's a really weird story. I thought it was weird when I first read it too, right? But I was like, there's a thread there, and there's I think there's it's an amplified version of basically Bruce Wayne's journey as Batman, right? The tragedy of basically the thing that starts him, right? The death of his parents, right? In this case, again, it's a curse now that's in the whole city, right? There's a bigger responsibility, right? Where he has to go. And what does he sacrifice, right? Because I think a lot of the best Batman stuff is right. Is like, what does he sacrifice instead of having a normal? I mean, he's rich, he's handsome, he can get anything that he wants, but he chooses to be live in isolation and go out every night and fight crime.
Put on this over exaggeration of what Batman.
And the good stories, I feel like, again, they sort of introduce the element of like, what if, right? It's like there's a woman that or that you would be perfect for, that's perfect for you. It's tragic that you can't overcome your trauma. So things like that, sacrifice. Again, it's a spoiler, but I think the concept of basically, it's like, and this happens, I feel like, with a lot of the main characters, right? Like Oliver Queen, right? There's the sins of the father, right?
Yeah.
Like the founding forefathers made this deal with the devil, right? And they all feel very responsible. It all brings them to their doom. Right? Oliver basically tries his very best to prepare himself to fight this thing that's coming, right? That's responsible for. Well, there's multiple things that his dad is responsible for, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Langstrom, and Bruce as well. And ultimately, even though he sort of uses, we sort of made it into basically he uses more of what Langstrom has learned to further what he needs to be. Oliver basically tries to, again, fight it with what he knows and how he's been trained, which is parallels with Bruce.
Yeah, so it's like three separate levels, but kind of reaching goal, but they're just going different routes about it.
Yeah, but they all felt the same guilt and responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. Even though Bruce kind of not until later understands it, right? Because it's been shut off in the psyche, right? But him, in that pivotal time, basically understanding that he has to give up his humanity, and again, just the image of him. I changed it to a clock tower because again, that's what I wanted to see in my head.
Yeah.
Is like he becomes basically the creature of the clock tower, and I was just like, oh, that's so cool. So that's why I wanted to.
With the restructuring in Warner Brothers to now we have DC Studios, has that had any effect on future plans for these Warner Brother animation DC original movies?
I think they're still in the tail end of it. That was my last project, and again, like, it's been difficult because again, they haven't greenlighted stuff, right? So I was unemployed for the last 5 months, so I don't really know what's kind of, even when I was working there, we're not on that level to be in these types of conversations, but I know that they're reworking stuff, and there was a time they were very worried. Even the setup of it, it's not like how it used to be, so I think they're trying to figure things out, and with James Gunn, I think it'll be similar but different. Do you know what I mean? So it's good to have an ally, that appreciates it. So
So do you know if there's any more coming from that, like tomorrow, Man of Tomorrow kind of chronology they're doing?
I don't know too much about it, but I think it's going to end, right? Because all these things, again, there's a shelf life and a cycle, right? The stuff that I was working on with James Tucker, I think that went on a little longer than they expected, and so that's why it got shut down so quickly. I was so burnt out by the end of it as well, to be honest. And that's why I didn't really direct the last few, because I think I was just so, I don't know, tired, But again, I think that, you've heard, the stories or whatever, that Justice League Dark 2 was going to be a totally different story, but it got reshaped into something that James felt like could bring closure to his universe.
Well,
So it was a little sudden for us.
when it comes to this movie, Lovecraft and Batman is such an unusual take. Was it hard bringing together the right talents to make this film work?
Yes, it was definitely a struggle because again, it's a very sort of specific thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just thankful. There's a few war artists that really saved my butt on this thing. One of them is a guy named Brian Penranda. I think he totally got it. And so some of this really just scenes that I love, or shots that I love. Another guy, Michael Gunnell, Josh Coley. These people really got it. It's just really. I was very fortunate to have these people on the team. So, but I think again, even like things like, like Soul of the Dragon. Do you know what I mean? Like I had some really good fight war artists on it. And if I didn't have them, I don't think that thing would have sort of had the right spices or elements in it. You know what I mean?
Sorry?
The right elements in it,
Yeah.
I think it wouldn't feel as sort of 70s sort of kung fu theater kind of,
Respect it.
76 more of a tank. I worked on it. No, it's fine. You just find you win.
Anything else?
Can you talk some about the idea of the arc of kind of Bruce Wayne being this explorer hero guy who thinks he's just being an adventurer, who stumbles upon a horror movie and then has to kind of embrace the horrorness of it?
Yeah, because again, there's so much in it. There's these little backstories that I wish that could have been a little more, clear, right? Instead of touched on, right? So if you look at his board, when you first go into the underground, his cabin, his captain's cabin, there's that board with all these lines that are on it with pictures of basically these arcane artifacts. And so he's been doing this for a while. You know what I mean? Again, he's been running. He knows that there's something weird. And again, we try to hint at it too, but it's difficult, right? Because there's nothing to, you're not going to see it, right? But again, it was supposed to be a thing where, he ran into Cobblepot at some point, and Cobblepot was going on this exploration in Antarctica. They go missing, and Bruce is like, I haven't heard from him. I need to go find him. In a year or something like that. So, he's supposed to he's not just sort of going around, living a playboy life, but he's supposed to be learned, again, all his detectiving, his science, his knowledge, his fighting skills around the world versus being in Gotham and leaving Gotham every once in a while. But he, we imagine that he went to Tibet, he went to mystic places, he went to areas of science, hard science, things like that. So, anyways.
So what's after this? What's your next DC project, or if you plan to still work on DC?
I've been unemployed for the last 5 months.
Well, you've done work for Marvel as well. And they're
Yeah, they're in trouble as well.
oh wow.
Yeah, but I think it's been in the news, so I don't think it's anything new, right? And so I think the whole animation industry is sort of taken a hit, by these big companies, with the Netflixes, the Disneys, and whatnot. That I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I am going to be starting to work on something next month. That's back at Warner Brothers.
Can you tell us what that is?
Sheesh.
Where they got like a snipers, the red,
Yeah, I mean,
red
it's
light
been
over
out.
it
I
now.
mean, it's that Creature Commanders thing.
What is it?
Creature Commanders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not heading it. You know,
Oh,
I'm just going to be directing it. But again, I know it's been released. You know, I mean, the information has been, but not who it is. So I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble or not. So
It's going to be one of the first DC Studios animated stuff.
yeah. All right, I guess.
It was subtle.
Yeah.
Got to end on Creature Commanders. Follow-up questions.